Hello! Welcome back to Literacy Education. You're in Module 2 now, and we're going to be learning about vocabulary. So why am I starting you off with vocabulary? Because having an extensive vocabulary, first oral and then reading/written, is one of the most consistent indicators of success, school success, I should say. If you're going to be successful in school, it's probably because you have a very high and elaborate vocabulary. Let's look at some of those consequences. There are a lot of unknowns. There's a really big depth and breadth to this topic that I can't necessarily get in just a single 3-hour module. I could probably teach a whole course. I've taken a whole course on vocabulary. I'll say that a lot throughout this, is there's so much to learn about these topics. I'm trying to hit the highlights for you. First thing that we know, high knowledge third graders have vocabularies equal to low performing 12th graders. So that means that high performing 9-year-olds are able to use a vocabulary in ways that are similar to low performing 18-year-olds. That's a huge gap. High school seniors who are performing at the top of their class will know 4 times the words that low performing seniors do. That's an end goal. Let's look at where it starts. First grade students from high socioeconomic status groups, they're going to know about twice as many words as their low socioeconomic peers. In some areas, it's going to be even worse than that. The gap will be even larger. In order to start trying to close this gap, students need to be learning an estimated 4,000 to 5,000 new words each year. It is impossible for you to teach every single student 4,000 to 5,000 words every year. So we're going to look into how we can handle that. Because vocabulary, one of the best predictors for success. So if we spend time on vocabulary and helping students learn vocabulary, we are not wasting our time. What does it mean to increase your vocabulary meaningfully? Students need to be able to learn both the meaning of the word, and then they need to have strategies for learning words they don't know when you're not there. Remember, 4,000 to 5,000 words. You can't do it all. You need to be able to teach students what to do when they encounter a word they don't know. If, as I am talking, you are picturing the D word, I would like you to stop. Please stop picturing that. Don't do it. For the purposes of this course, let's say that the dictionary is the absolute last resort. Dictionary definitions have their place, but there are a plethora of reasons why they're not the most suitable way to learn new words. First off, word meanings are nuanced. Learning an unfamiliar word, it's not really great when you're in a dictionary, because if you go to the dictionary, you're going to see a word's entry have 2, 3, 430 different meanings. That's not hyperbolic. That's not a joke. There is a word in the English language that has 430 meanings. It set the Guinness Book of World Record. It took 60,000 words to describe the meaning of this one word. And this one word is the word set. There are 430 different meanings for the word set, from drum set to volleyball set to Set, the Egyptian god, to ready, set, go. That's a lot of meanings, and that's a fairly small word that you probably feel like you understand at a high level. But if you tried to write out all 430 nuanced meanings to this word, I know I couldn't do it. I suspect few of you could as well. So when a student encounters a word they don't know and they go to a dictionary, they have to pick from like a menu of meanings to figure out which one is the appropriate one. And those dictionary definitions, they're often literal and almost always decontextualized. And something that's been decontextualized, taken out of context, and without meaning associated with it, whew, that's rough. Let's picture it in terms of Google Translate, right? I don't understand a word, so I put it into Google Translate. The problem is, I don't understand the word that Google spit back out at me. So then I need to take that word, and I need to find out what it means. And maybe when I find out that meaning, there's part of it I don't understand either. So I'm on this like trail of trying to understand a word. Here's an example. The man's behavior was irremissible. Let's assume I do not understand the word irremissible. So I look it up. Not remissible. Not helpful. I still have no idea what it is. If I knew what remissible was, I probably would already know the word. So I look up remissible. Capable of being forgiven. Let's assume I have somehow come across this word at like a 4th or 5th grade level. Capable is not a word I feel super comfortable with. I want to check it out. I go to capable. There are going to be a lot of definitions. I'm going to try them one at a time. Capable, susceptible. I have no idea what susceptible means in my imaginary world. I move on to the next one. Having attributes such as physical or mental power required for performance or accomplishment. I kind of get that. It does have the explanation next to attributes, physical or mental power. So let's see. The man's behavior was not having the mental or physical power of being forgiven. But I don't know if it's mental or physical. I'm still confused. I'm going to try again. Capable, having traits conducive, nope, no idea what that means. Capable, having the legal right to own, enjoy, or perform. So the man's behavior was having the legal right of enjoying being forgiven? I don't think that's right either. Capable, having or showing general efficiency and ability. You see what's happened? I've got 5 definitions. I'm already 3 levels in, and there are words I still don't understand. I'm not sure I know what susceptible means. Attributes is a little confusing. I don't think I understand the word conducive. I understand having a legal right to own, but that definition doesn't seem to make any sense. And efficiency, I know I've heard, but doesn't make sense to me in this context. I am already way down a bunny trail, and I still have no idea what this word means. And I might take 10 minutes trying to figure it out. Okay, so if we can't do that, then what can we do? Let's talk about what we do know works. Let's talk about what quality vocabulary instruction can look like. Like so many things, there are so many ways to teach vocabulary. There's so many ways to handle vocabulary instruction. I don't have time to go into them all. I'm going to give you just some highlights, some really good things you can use. Phonics. In the reading wars, we talked about how there's this dichotomy between phonics, whole language, and balanced literacy, but even the most staunch whole literacy person will probably admit there is a benefit to understanding phonics. Now they'll say it's not necessary, but they probably acknowledge there's a benefit for understanding how sounds associate with letters. So research also, there's a lot of research that shows how helpful phonics can be. I've pulled up this lovely dictionary definition because phonics is the science of sound. See, not super helpful. We probably want the second one. It's a method of teaching beginners to read and pronounce words by learning the phonetic values of the letters, letter groups, and especially syllables. Let's talk about what that actually means in practice, okay? So I'm going to, again, have a very complicated discussion using some really overarching terms and just some real simple examples. Let's take a look at this. To understand a word, first I have to have some general idea of what that word is and what it might mean. So I look at this guy right here, and I know that's a cat. I've seen it before. I might have some other names for it. It might look just like Bilbo Fluffins. It could look like, if I knew the breed of this cat, I would say the breed of the cat. I have no idea what the breed of that cat is. But generally speaking, most people could identify that as a cat. Now, if we're looking at this from a phonics perspective, I need to know how many sounds make up the word cat. This is the pillar that's right next to phonics instruction, and that's phonemic awareness. So here, I can circle this theoretically. Hey, it works. Phonemic awareness. So if I can hear how many sounds there are in the word cat, then I'll probably be able to say k, a, t, and understand that I need 3 letters to go with those sounds. Here's where this gets bananas crazy and super more difficult than it needs to be for English. A long time ago, over 1,000 years ago, we decided to use the Roman alphabet to describe the English language. The Roman alphabet has 26 letters. English has 44 distinct phonemes, so we're using 26 letters to represent 44 distinct sounds. You can see the problem. I'm not saying that to be a downer. I'm just saying to be proud of yourself. Be impressed with yourself, with your family, with your students, with your children, with anyone who has been able to wrap their mind around all of the little tricks that we have come up with over the centuries to do that, to represent so many sounds with so few letters. This includes digraphs and blends and special characters and dialectic marks and anything that we've used over time to communicate all of that. Okay, so for phonics to matter, to be phonemic awareness and then phonics for it to matter, students need to be directly instructed in new vocabulary words. This means that they need to hear those words used meaningfully. So not decontextualized, not that you just say the word, but that you have used it in context appropriate for the use of that word multiple times. And by multiple, I don't mean 3, I don't mean 4. I'm looking more at like 10 to 12. And after they hear it, that's not enough. They then need opportunities to be encouraged to use it meaningfully, connected to something where the word would make sense. Again, multiple times, and multiple not meaning 3 or 4. Multiple meaning 10 to 12 good uses. So they need to hear it 10 to 12 times meaningfully. They need to use it 10 to 12 times meaningfully. Every time they hear it and it's unfamiliar, they're going to have a strategy to figure it out. Or you're going to have a strategy to help them. This can get difficult, but direct vocabulary instruction, both when you're using it just as a definitional sense and when you're looking at a way to approach unfamiliar words without those types of supports, are super important. They're word learning strategies. And an additional note there is the idea of word awareness. It'll tie to something that we need to learn more about later, which is called monitoring comprehension. But the idea is it's really essential to also know that you don't know a word. When you read a word and you did not get the correct meaning, we don't always notice that we've done that. If we think we've recognized the word, or if we thought the word wasn't important to the meaning and we just move on, we don't use any of our word solving strategies and we don't understand what we've read. So we also have to notice that something's gone wrong in our comprehension of the word. We'll get more into that when we're in comprehension. I just wanted to point it out. All right, so I've been kind of a downer. Let's talk about direct instruction, what you should be doing. So first, preview a topic and find words that might be unfamiliar. Look for things that your students probably haven't encountered. Some of them may have, some of them may not have. There will probably be words you didn't think would be unfamiliar, but for some students will be. That's okay. Just set yourself up for success. Preview those topics. Then be ready to use visuals, acting, synonyms, anything that's going to help your students make sense and convey the meaning of that word. Then ask the students to use it. Draw it, act it out, create a sentence, create a diagram, discuss it with others, use it in discussions meaningfully, etc., etc., etc. Remember, 10 to 12 meaningful uses. So that doesn't mean 10 to 12 times they use it on a worksheet. Mix it up. Give them reasons to use it that feel meaningful, that feel real. The more you use academic vocabulary casually so that they're surrounded by it, used in context, the more likely they are to understand it, use it themselves, and later be able to read it, because if they can decode it, if they can use their phonics to decode the word, and they know what it is, we're ahead of the game. Okay, so what are you going to teach? I told you need to teach them 4,000 to 5,000 words, and then I said that was impossible. So what words do you teach? One way to look at this, again, one way out of a plethora of ways, is through tiers. This was developed as a way to sort of organize words. The first tier, those are your everyday words. Usually students don't need any help to learn these. They're the words that surround them. And even lower performing folks from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, these are the words that everyone will probably come to school knowing. Things like dog and house and good. Good is a complicated idea, but they'll have some sense of it. And then tier 2, those are going to be high use academic words that you can use across content areas. Okay, because that's very different from tier 3, which we'll get to in a second. But these are multi-use words. These are words like approach, direction, prediction. You could see them being used across content areas. They probably have multiple meanings, because in those content areas they might mean different things. For example, a prediction in math is going to be very different from a prediction in a book. The direction that you have at the top of your worksheet is very different from the direction you're looking at in geography. So they'll have multiple meanings. Tier 3, those are your content area specific, very low frequency use words. Those are words that really only fit in one content area and you only use them when you're talking about something very specific, like mitosis, like a cappella in music, like hypotenuse in math, or allegory in English language arts. These are sort of your really important words. They have to be embedded in authentic contexts. These are probably words that your kids will have to have word learning strategies for, because they're not part of the 4,000 or 5,000 level that you're going to be directly talking to them about. It is tier 2 that is going to be the bang for your buck. That's where you should focus your word learning, word direct instruction time. So again, this can be grade level specific. Something that is a tier 2 word for a first grader probably won't be a tier 2 word for a 10th grader. But in general, that's how these words are going to go. And the way that we can do that is through something called word study. I've been talking probably longer than you wanted me to. I flew through it because I'd love to give you as much time as possible to finish this week's readings and work on this week's activity. And what you're going to be reading about is something called word study. You're going to be reading an excerpt from a book. It's up online as a PDF. It's by Shane Templeton and Kristen Gessman, and it is a very practical look at what you do when you're trying to give students instruction in word learning. And while you read, I want you to keep 3 questions in mind. What is word study? Should you use word study? And what would word study look like in a classroom? I'm going to give you just a few extra seconds because I know I talk really fast to just get all that down, because you're going to want to have those questions with you. Make sure you get the reading in front of you as well, if possible. If you need to, just pause where we are, get that reading in front of you, because I'm going to walk through a few things. I'll assume you're back, or that you've at least had time to pause. Okay, so let's walk through this section and get an idea of what to look for when you're reading this week. If you printed out a copy, have a highlighter ready. If it's online that lets you highlight, great. If you have something to take notes with, awesome. If you don't, pause me again. And I'll assume you're back. Okay, let's take a look at a pre-read. Remember, we preview topics when we are unfamiliar with them. So take a look at the headers. Look through those graphics and the cutouts. Look at the bolded words. And only then will you do in-depth reading. So if we take a look at those headers, you're going to notice things like sorting, student talk, reflection, discussion. I look at that word and I know that reflection and discussion, I know those are really important ideas for learning. So I keep looking at the headers and I see teacher directed, demonstrate, demonstrating is direct instruction. So I know that that'll be a really good section, because if you're demonstrating something, you're direct instructing your students. So I'm going to want to notice that. Reflecting again, I've seen that twice now, must be important. Working on them throughout the week, ways to extend sorting. When I look at that one, ways to extend sorting, I see that's probably activities, and I might be able to use those activities. And then the very final one is how to assess word study. Always important to keep track of, but it might not fit the questions I'm asking. I'll have to think about it. I suppose it might feed into what it would look like in the classroom. Could also, knowing how to assess it, play some role in whether I think I should use it or not. Now it's time to check out those graphics and the cutouts. The tables that I skimmed over when I was looking at the headers. I see Common Core, a student writing sample, different types of sorts and word games, possible schedules, and then lastly, there's a student contract. I can't remember if I copied that for you. I might not have. Either way, that would be the point in the book where I hit it and realized I entered the next section, because student contracts don't have anything to do with word study. So I stop. Okay, these are all really good things to note. I know that I'm going to want to look at the schedules carefully, because looking at a schedule is going to help me know what it would look like in the classroom, which is one of my main questions. So I want to look at those schedules really carefully. And then I also think that the third question I have about word study and those Common Core connections that I can see in some of the cutouts, that could be really, really helpful for me. It could really help me decide if I should use it, and what it'll look like when I use it. So I make note of that just in my mind, or even by highlighting it. I know that I want to look carefully at those ideas. So now I skim bolded words. I want to make sure I'm clear on those. Generalizations, open sort, keywords, key pictures. I know I'm going too fast, I'll slow down. You'll probably find the word reflections and headers. I think I know what all of those words are, but I'm going to read a couple words before and after, see if I understand the meaning and context. If I do, I'm fine. If not, I might seek out more ways of understanding those words. A dictionary is always there, but it's not my favorite option. Probably could ask a peer, ask a coworker if they've heard the term before and do they understand it. I might try and find it in the back of the text in the glossary, because that glossary definition is more likely to align than a dictionary definition, because the glossary will probably only give me the definition that is associated with the book's use of the word. So I might check the glossary. I have strategies, but I think I understand the term. So now I'm ready to read through the chapter in depth, in its entirety. I have a general sense of what I think will be important. I know what I'm trying to get out of the reading. I can focus on the information that will help me, and I can spend less time focusing on information I think won't help me. I have a general sense of how long the reading is and how much time I probably will need to spend doing it. If I don't have that time right this second, I can set it aside. I'll have my highlights and my notes to direct me when I come back to it. So why did we do all that? Because I wanted to give you a little direction on how to read material throughout this course. Throughout this course, there are going to be articles and chapters where I want you to pay attention to the markers that are used in nonfiction text to be a better, more efficient reader, the same way you probably want your kids to be. Look at headers, look at graphics, have an intentional goal in mind. Think about what you want to get out of these readings before you go into reading them, so that you have a focused plan for your reading, and only then do that in-depth reading. And if you look and see sections that don't seem to help you, don't read them in depth. There will be a few readings, especially in the optional readings, that are studies. And that means there'll be an introduction, very interesting. There'll be a literature review. That will be a review of studies that have been done before about a similar thing, could be useful. And then there will be a methodology section. That will be how the study was conducted, who it was conducted on, and the step-by-step procedures, possibly the theoretical perspective that was used. If all of this sounds silly and meaningless to you at this moment, it might be. Don't read it very carefully. There should be a nice clear heading when we get to the word findings. So you can almost always skip right from methodology to findings, because typically your purpose for this course won't be to understand how they conducted the study. It'll be, what did they find when they did the study? You do not have to read that section in depth. It's kind of a waste of your time. So if you're reading a study, so that means that they had a research question, they got participants, they did some sort of intervention, or they used some sort of analytical tool to better understand the participants, and then they analyzed their findings. You can skip the part where they described how they did it and just go straight to what they found. Okay, whew, that was a lot, but now you know what you need to do next. You need to read the chapter excerpt. Then you get to choose an article. There's a list, you have a choice article. Then view the short video. All of that is required. After you're done reading, work on the vocabulary activity, dig deep into vocabulary. It has fairly self-explanatory instructions. I guess not self-explanatory, but I've tried to explain it fairly well. But if you have questions, contact your instructor. You will be diving deep into word meanings and how you can put those word meanings into student-friendly language and student-friendly experience. Should be a good practice for you. And you get to choose the words, so choose words that make sense for your context. After you're done with that, take the quiz and you're on to Module 3, and I'll see you there.